Hello everyone and welcome to the 5-minute German A1 exam preparation series. In today's video, we will learn how to write an email or a letter in the A1 exam. This video will be a little longer, but I will tell you everything that you need to know about writing an email or letter in the exam. We will write 3 letters from the Goethe exams. I will also give you tips and tricks as well as commonly used sentences which you can use in the exam so that you can get good marks. So watch the video till the end, and without wasting any time, let's get started. So before I tell you how to write a brief or an email in the A1 exam, let's just quickly take a look at what are the different parts of the A1 exam. So for those of you who don't know, there are 4 parts in the A1 exam. These are Hören, which is listening, Lesen, which is reading, Schreiben, which is writing, and Sprechen, which is speaking. The Schreiben or writing section of the exam has 2 parts. In the first part, you have to fill out a form in which there are 5 blanks and you get 5 marks for this part. And the second part is to write a letter or an email, and this should be 30 words or 4 to 5 sentences, and this has 10 marks. So right now our focus will be on part 2, which is how to write a letter or an email. Both are written in the same way, so it doesn't matter if it is a letter or an email, there is no change in how you write them. So let's start by taking a look at what are the different types of letters or emails. So a letter or an email can either be formal, which means formal, or informal, which means informal. So let's first take a look at formal emails or letters. So a formal email or letter is written to Firmen, Behörden, Schule, etc. For example, a hotel, a Sprachschule, which is a language school, or tourist information office. So if you have to write to a public office or an institute, then you will write a formal letter or an email. It is also written to persons which have a title, for example, Herr or Frau, which means Mr. or Mrs. So if a person has the name Herr Fischer or Frau Fischer, then you will write a formal letter or an email to them. And you also write formal letters or emails to people you don't know very well. For example, if you are writing to some specific person at an institute or someone you have not met. So in these cases, you will use the formal way. So how do you start a formal letter or an email? So this starting is also called Anrede, and depending on who you are writing to, the starting will be different. So for example, if you are writing to one male whose name is, for example, Herr Fischer, then you will write the Anrede as Sehr geehrter Herr Fischer, which means Dear Mr. Fischer, and you will also add a comma at the end. This is very important. Now if you are writing to a single female, for example, whose name is Frau Fischer, then you will write the Anrede as Sehr geehrte Frau Fischer, and this means Dear Mrs. Fischer. So you see that we write geehrte in case of female and geehrter in case of male. So the ending changes. So you should keep this in mind. And in this case, we also have a comma at the end. Now, if you are writing to an institute where you don't know who the person is or what their name is, then in this case, you can write the Anrede as Sehr geehrte Damen und Herren, which means Dear ladies and gentlemen. And over here, you will use the same ending as we use for the female, which is geehrte. And don't forget the comma at the end. Now what if you have more than one person to whom you are writing? Then how will the Anrede look like? So if you are writing to 2 males whose names are, for example, Herr Fischer and Herr Müller, then you will write Sehr geehrter Herr Fischer und sehr geehrter Herr Müller. So you will write the name of one person, you will add and then add the name of the second person. One important thing over here is that the sehr for the second person will start with a small s and not with a capital S. Now if you are writing to 2 females whose names are Frau Fischer and Frau Müller, then you will write it as Sehr geehrte Frau Fischer und sehr geehrte Frau Müller. So similar to how you wrote it for 2 males. And over here again, remember that the s for the second female will be small. What if you are writing to one male and one female, for example, Herr Müller and Frau Müller? Then in this case you will write Sehr geehrter Herr Müller und sehr geehrte Frau Müller. So you have the ending ER with Herr Müller and the ending E with Frau Müller. And the second S for sehr will be small. Now one more point over here is that when you write to a male and a female, then the male comes first and then the female name comes. So as you see over here, I have written Herr Müller first and then Frau Müller. So keep this in mind as well. So this is how you start a formal letter or an email. Now how will you end a formal letter or an email? So this is much simpler. So what you will do is that you will write mit freundlichen Grüßen, which means with friendly regards or friendly greetings. And over here, the M for mit and the G for Grüßen will be capital. And one more important point is that there will be no comma at the end of this sentence. Then in the next line, you will write your full name. So in my case, I will write Usama Ehsan. So mit freundlichen Grüßen, Usama Ehsan. So this is the Gruß or the ending that you will write for the formal letter or an email. Now one more important point. Which personal pronoun will you use when you write a formal letter or email? So for formal letter or emails, you will use the formal way, which is Sie. And this will be used for both singular and plural. And you will also use the verb form for formal or Sie, which are brauchen, kommen, machen, etc. So now let's take a look at a sample exam, which you will also find in the Goethe practice tests. So the question is, Sie möchten im Juli Frankfurt besuchen. So you want to visit Frankfurt in July. So möchten over here means would like to, it is a modal verb, and besuchen means to visit. Schreiben Sie eine E-Mail an die Touristeninformation. Write an email to the tourist information. Now this sentence is the imperative form. So they are making a request to you that you should write an email to the tourist information. Then in our email, we should mention Warum schreiben Sie? Why are you writing? What is the reason? So warum means why. Then you also have to request Bitten Sie Informationen über Restaurant, Museen und so weiter. Kultur. So bitten Sie means to request and über means about. And this USW at the end, it means und so weiter or etc. in English. And the last point is Fragen Sie Hoteladressen. Ask about hotel addresses. Now let's solve this question by writing an email. So I already told you that this is a formal email, but who will we write it to? So when we take a look at the question, then it is written that write an email to the tourist information. So this is an office and no name is given. So in this case, we will use the Anrede or starting Sehr geehrte Damen und Herren, which is used when we don't know who we are addressing or writing to. Now since you don't know the other person and the other person also does not know about you, so it is always good to start with your name. So you will write Mein Name ist Usama Ehsan. And one important point over here is that the first letter, which is M in this case, will always be small and not capital. So the first sentence after the Anrede will always start with a small letter. Then you can tell Ich möchte im Juli nach Frankfurt reisen. So this is the reason why you are writing, that I would like to travel to Frankfurt in July. So reisen means to travel. After that, you can say Ich brauche Informationen über Restaurants und Museen in Frankfurt. So this is the second point where you are asking about information about restaurants and museums in Frankfurt. The third point is to ask about hotel addresses. So you can say, können Sie mir auch ein paar Hotels empfehlen? So in this sentence, auch means also, ein paar means a few or couple of, and empfehlen means to recommend. And since this is a question, that's why you will have a question mark at the end as well. And after that, you can end your email by saying, Vielen Dank im Voraus für Ihre Hilfe. Thank you very much in advance for your help. And then the Gruß or ending, which will be mit freundlichen Grüßen and the full name, so Usama Ehsan. So this is how you will write a formal letter or email. Now let's take a look at informal or informal letters or emails. So these are written to Freunde or friends, people you call by first name. These can also be your friends or family, for example, Anna, Thomas, etc. And people you know very well, for example, close colleagues, Nachbarn, which are neighbors. So to these people, you will write using the informal way. Now let's take a look at the Anrede or how do you start. So if you are writing to one male whose name is, for example, Thomas, then you will start by saying Lieber Thomas, which means dear Thomas. And since this is a male, that's why you will have the ending er, and you will also have the comma at the end. If you are writing to one female whose name is Anna, then you will say Liebe Anna. So the ending e, and don't forget the comma at the end. In informal case, you don't have any unknown because you won't write an informal letter or email to someone you don't know. Now what if you are writing to more than one person? So if you are writing to two males, for example, whose names are Thomas and Felix, then you will say Lieber Thomas und Lieber Felix, and you will use a small l in Lieber for the second person. If you are writing to two females, for example, Anna und Julia, then you will say Liebe Anna und Liebe Julia. Again, the L in Liebe for the second person will be a small letter. If you are writing to one male and one female, for example, Thomas and Anna, then you will say Lieber Thomas und Liebe Anna. And the letter L for the second person will be small. And this also follows the same sequence as we saw in the case of formal, that the male comes first and then the female name comes. So this is the Anrede, or how you start an informal letter or email. Now how do you end an informal letter or email? So you will end it by saying Viele Grüße. Only two words, Viele Grüße. And the first letters of both of them will be capital. And remember, no comma at the end. Then in the next line, you will write your Vorname or first name only. So in my case, I will write Usama. Now, which personal pronouns will you use in case of informal? So if you are writing to only one person, then you will use the second person singular, which is du. And if you are writing to more than one person, then you will use the second person plural, which is ihr. And remember to use the correct verb conjugations or verb forms. So in case of du, they will be, for example, brauchst, kommst, machst, etc. And for second person plural, which is ihr, they will be braucht, kommt, macht, etc. So now let's take a look at a sample question from the Goethe exam. So we have the question: Sie möchten Ihren Geburtstag feiern und Ihren Freund Thomas einladen. Schreiben Sie Thomas eine E-Mail. Now we see that this question starts with Sie, which means you, and then you have Ihren, which is the possessive pronoun, which means your. Then we have Geburtstag feiern, which means to celebrate your birthday. So you want to celebrate your birthday and you want to invite your friend Thomas. So einladen means to invite. And you also have die Einladung, which means invitation. So these are words which commonly come in the exam. That's why I am telling you this, so that even instead of einladen, you see Einladung, then you know that it is an invitation. So in this email, you have to write Warum schreiben Sie? So you have to tell the reason. The second point is Sagen Sie, wann und wo feiern Sie? Tell when and where you will be celebrating. And the third point is Fragen Sie kommen. You have to ask if Thomas will come or not. So now let us write this email. So this is an informal email because we are writing it to our friend Thomas. So we will write Lieber Thomas. Now Thomas is usually a male name. But what if in the exam there comes a name where you don't know whether this is a male or a female name? How will you find out? So there are other ways you can find out whether this is a male or a female. So if you take a look at the word friend, then friend means male friend. And if you also take a look at the ending of iren, which is en, then you should know that this is the accusative ending for male personal pronouns. That's why you will use the male starting, which is Lieber Thomas. If instead of ihren friend it was written ihre Freundin, then this would mean a female friend, because Freundin is for females. So this is what you can do if you don't know whether this is a male or a female name. But hopefully you don't come across this situation in the exam. So when writing an informal email, you can start by saying, Wie geht es dir? How are you? And over here again, you have to start with the small letter and not a capital letter. After that, you can write, Ich hoffe, es geht dir gut. I hope you are well. Now this is optional. If you think that you don't have enough words, then you can write this. Otherwise, you can also skip this. Then I will write, Ich möchte dich zu meinem Geburtstag einladen. I want to invite you to my birthday. Now why are we using meinem with the ending em over here? This is because zu is a dative preposition and you will use dative endings with the articles and personal pronouns which come after it. After that, I have to tell him when and where we will be celebrating. So I can say, Die Feier ist am Freitag 18 Uhr bei mir zu Hause. So this first part, am Freitag 18 Uhr, this answers the question of when we are having the celebration. And bei mir zu Hause tells where I am having the celebration. So I am having the celebration at home. Then you have to ask him whether he will come or not. So you can say, kannst du kommen? Will you be able to come? This is one way to say it. Or if you want to write it a little shorter, then you can say, kommst du? Will you come? So you can use either one of these in the exam. Then we can end the email by saying, Ich freue mich auf deine Antwort. I will be happy for your answer. Then we write the Gruß, which is viele Grüße, and then my first name, which is Usama. So this is how you can write the informal email or letter. And also remember that the Gruß will be on the left side and not on the right side. So this is how you can write an informal letter or an email. Now let me give you some tips which will be helpful for you in the exam. So the first tip is how to identify whether you have to write a formal or informal email or letter. So let's take a look at formal first. So you can identify if the email or letter is formal if you see the words Herr or Frau in the question, if the person is unknown, so there is no name given, or if you see the name of an office, institute, school, etc. in the question, then it will be a formal email or letter. On the other hand, if you see the first name of the person who you are writing to in the question, then it will be an informal letter or email. If you see the words friend or friendin in the question, then this means that you have to write an informal email or letter. And if you see the words Nachbar or Nachbarin, which means male or female neighbor, Kollege or Kollegin, which means male or female colleague, then it is also usually an informal email. But in this case, it will only be informal if you don't see the words Herr or Frau with the name in the question. So this is very important. Now the second tip is that there are some certain starting and ending sentences which you can use no matter what the question is. So let's take a look at formal ones first. So in case of a formal email or letter, you can use the starting sentence, Mein Name ist, and then your full name. So if you don't know the other person and the other person also does not know you, then you can start with this sentence. And to end the email or letter, you can use the sentences, Vielen Dank im Voraus für Ihre Hilfe. Thanks in advance for your help. Or you can say, Ich freue mich auf Ihre Antwort. I will be happy for your answer. In case of informal, you can start with the sentence, Wie geht es dir? How are you? And you can also add, Ich hoffe es geht dir gut. I hope you are well. But this is optional. And you can end it by saying, Ich freue mich auf deine Antwort. I will be happy for your answer. So these are sentences which you can use at the start and the end. And with this, you will reach the requirement of 30 words and it will give a good impression to the one who is checking the exam. Some other important tips for the exam are that you should use simple sentences. Don't be creative in the exam. Don't use difficult sentences because if you make a mistake, then your points will be deducted. The second tip is, if you don't know a word, then use words from the question. Now what do I mean by this? So if in the question you have the sentence, Sie möchten im Juli Frankfurt besuchen, then in the letter it is better that you write, Ich möchte im Juli nach Frankfurt reisen. So you don't use besuchen, rather you use reisen, which is a different word. However, if you don't know a different word, so you don't know the word reisen, then you can also write, Ich möchte im Juli Frankfurt besuchen. So you have reused besuchen in your answer. Now I know that many people say that this is not a good practice, but I would say that it is better to write this than writing a wrong word. And the third tip is that use words for which you know the article. Because if you use a word for which you don't know the article, then you will use the wrong endings and your marks will be deducted. Now what if you have to use a word from the question and you don't know the article to that word? What should you do in this case? So there is a way on how you can find the article of words used in the question. And this is by looking at the endings of the words before them. So let's take an example question. So this is a Goethe question which we will also solve later. And over here we have the word fire, which means celebrate. Now if you don't know the article of fire, how can you find it out? Also one more information. So in German, if you have a word which is a combination of two words, which in this case is Geburtstag and fire, then the article that you use before it will always be of the second word. So in this case, you will use the article for fire and not Geburtstag. So if you take a look at the word before it, which is seiner, then you see that it has the ending er. So will it be their fire? No, because you should also take a look at the word before it as well. So the word before it is su, which is a dative preposition. And if you take a look at the articles in dative, then you see that for feminine nouns, in dative, we have the ending there. And because we have seiner over here after su, so in this way we can find out the article for fire, which will be the fire. So this is a way of how you can find out the articles of words in the question. It might not work every time, but it is possible that in some cases you can find out the articles. So these were different tips that you can use in your exam. Now let's solve the question which we saw on the previous slide. I have changed it a little bit. So the question is, Ihre neue Kollegin, Frau Müller, lädt Sie am Dienstag 15 Uhr zu ihrer Geburtstagfeier im Büro ein. So your new colleague, Frau Müller, has invited you on Tuesday at 15 o'clock to her birthday celebration in the office. Now we have the word Kollegin over here. So is this an informal email that we have to write? No, because as I told you earlier, if you are writing to a Frau or a Herr, then it will always be a formal email or letter. And in this question, you see we have einladen, which is a trend by a verb. So we have lädt at the start and ein, which is the prefix comes to the end. And this means to invite. The next part is Schreiben Sie Frau Müller eine E-Mail. So you have to write an email to Frau Müller. And in the email you have to write, Warum schreiben Sie? Why are you writing? Sagen Sie später kommen. You have to tell her that you will come later. And fragen Sie helfen. You have to ask if she needs help. So let's write this email. Since we are writing a formal email to a female, so we will start by saying Sehr geehrte Frau Müller, dear Miss Müller. Now in this case, since we know the person, we will say Vielen Dank für die Einladung zu Ihrer Geburtstagfeier. Thank you very much for the invitation to your birthday celebration. And you see that the first letter is small over here as well. Then we can write Ich komme gern, aber etwas später. I will gladly come, but a little bit later. Ich habe 14:30 Uhr einen Termin und komme danach. I have an appointment at 14:30 and will come after it. Danach means after it. Then you have to ask her if she needs help. So you can say, Brauchen Sie Hilfe für die Feier? Do you need help for the celebration? Soll ich etwas mitbringen? Should I bring something with me? Mitbringen means with me. And then you will end the email by saying mit freundlichen Grüßen and your full name, which in my case will be Usama Ehsan. Now let me give you some different sentences which you can use in different situations. So if you are asking for information, then you can say Ich brauche Informationen über and then the things about which you need information. You can also say Ich möchte ein paar Informationen über then the things that you need information about haben. I would like to have information about and the things that you need information. You can write it over here. Now in case of an invitation, which is an Einladung, if you plan to go, then you can say Ich komme gern, I will gladly come. And if you are not able to go, then you can say Leider kann ich nicht kommen. Unfortunately, I cannot come. If you have to tell someone when you will arrive, then you can say Ich komme and then the time. And if you want to just tell I will come a little later, then you can say Ich komme etwas später. I will come a little later. And you can also extend this sentence by saying Ich habe einen Termin 14 Uhr und komme etwas später. I have an appointment at this time and will come a little later. Now if you want to ask somebody something, then you can use the sentence Wann beginnt For example, the fire or thus concert. When begins the celebration or the concert? If you want to ask where something will happen, then you can say Wo is the fire, which means where is the celebration? Or you can say Wo findet die Feier statt? Where does the celebration take place? If you want to ask about the price of something, then you can say Wie viel kostet, then der Kurs or das Ticket, or anything that you want to ask the price about. Now, if you are requesting somebody something, then you can say Können Sie mir bitte mehr Informationen zu the topic schicken? Can you please send me more infos on the topic? Or you can say Kannst du or können Sie mir bitte helfen? If you are asking or requesting for help, can you please help me? Or you can also say Können Sie mir eine Liste mit the things that you need schicken? Can you please send me a list of things? For example, restaurants in Frankfurt. So you can replace it with whatever is asked in the question. And schicken means to send. Now before we end, let me give you a suggestion of how you should approach this part of the exam. So first of all, you should write your email on a rough page. Once you are done writing your email, then you should check that all the nouns that you have used in your email are capital, because nouns in German always have the first letter capital. After that, you should check if you are using the correct verb conjugations and the positions of the verbs are also correct. For example, if you use a modal verb, then the main verb should go to the end of the sentence. Once you have proofread your letter, then you should transfer it to the Antwortbogen. This is the answer sheet. By following these steps and the suggestions that I have given you in this video, I am sure that you will get good marks in your exam. For those of you who have an exam coming up, I wish you all best of luck. I would also suggest you to practice these different questions so that in the exam, you know the sentences and you can write the letter in less time. So I hope that this video was helpful for you. If you have any questions or feedback, please let me know in the comments below. Thank you very much for your time and your continuous support. And we will see each other in the next video.